Hi there, and welcome to a special election edition of my weekly video. Today I'm going to give you valuable insight on the relevance of when one party holds the White House and how that affects the market versus the other party, since primarily there are two main parties. To help me explain this, I'm going to show you a couple different charts. One that will show year by year since about World War II how the economy in the US and the markets in the US have done depending on which party held the White House and in years when the party had the House and Senate and the White House, or when that was split. And then the second chart will give you a more expanded view since about the Great Depression, how the markets have done generally through all of the years when one party or the other held the White House. So let's dive in. In this first chart at the top, it shows how the GDP, or our growth of our economy, did year by year since 1947. The blue bars represent years when it was all Democrat, the red bars when it was all Republican, and the gray bars when there was a divided government. The takeaway here, if you can see, the vast majority of all of these bars are above water. There isn't a huge amount of difference. In every situation, on average, the economy still grew, even though 61% of the time it was mixed, 29% of the time it was all Democratic, and 11% of the time it was all Republican. On the bottom part of this chart, showing the U.S. stock market as represented by the S&P 500, you see again, year by year, how the stock market did depending on, in blue bars, all Democrat, red bars, all Republican, or gray bars, a divided government. Now, while you see a little more volatility here as represented by the stock market, there is no real differentiation as far as one being positive and one being negative. Republican average was a little bit higher, but it was a smaller part of the time. The vast majority of the time when it was a divided government, the S&P 500 averaged 8.3%. The second chart illustrates an overall view of how the S&P 500 did from 1933, about the time Franklin Roosevelt was inaugurated, through December 31st of 2023. The Democratic terms were in the blue in here, Republican in the red. And you can see from start to finish, though there were a lot of different presidents from each party, it didn't really seem to affect the fact that over time the U.S. stock market continued to grow. And that's the real takeaway to me from this information, that the party that's in office in the White House doesn't necessarily dictate that the market is going to do well or not do well. And to that matter, it also, I don't believe, is fair that one party would take all the credit or give all the blame for how the economy is doing or how it had done in the past. There are many other indicators and many other things that influence the economies and the market. And while there definitely is an effect, it certainly isn't all politics. Well, thanks for taking the time to watch this. And for full disclosure, thank you to JP Morgan and to Capital Group/American Funds for supplying this information for your edification and maybe for your water cooler moments. Thanks again.